Today we are taking a look at the new colored pencil paper by Strathmore, and I'm doing a demonstration on this tiger on that paper. Hi, I'm Lisa, the artist behind Lachri Fine Art. Today I'm giving you guys a review on this brand new colored pencil paper. It is the first time that a company has labeled a paper specifically for colored pencil artists, so that was pretty exciting. Yay, companies are paying attention to us. Or in this case, they are just writing colored pencil on it to make a sale. When I first got this paper, I thought it was going to be okay. It comes in a pack of 30. I got the 11 by 14 inch size, which cost me about $15 to $20 after shipping from dickblick.com. Most stores don't carry this yet. You have to get it online. Last time I checked, Dick Blick was sold out. Everyone wants to try this stuff. Everyone's been pretty excited about it. The paper itself, it's only 100 pounds, which means it's kind of thin, but I've worked on thinner paper and been kind of happy with it, so I figured this would be okay. Not as heavyweight as the Fabriano that I typically use, which is 140 pounds, but 100 pounds isn't terrible. What I was really hoping for was a lower cost paper that newer artists who go through paper faster would enjoy working on. So in testing this out, the things that I was looking for were, first, I wanted to test it with the airbrush because I do use the airbrush a lot for my backgrounds on colored pencil, so I wanted to see how it would handle that. Second, I wanted to see how it would handle blending, both with burnishing and with blending with paint thinner like I usually do. I use Mona Lisa odorless paint thinner, as most of you know. Last, I wanted to see how my color saturation would be, because that is a big deal with colored pencil. So when I got started with airbrush, as usual, I used masking tape to tape off my edges. This is great because when paper gets wet and it starts to warp or buckle, when you've got your edges taped off, the paper will dry back flat in shape and it looks like it never got wet, except with this stuff. It warped so bad and did not want to go back into shape at all. And I actually saw the warping worse on the tiger than I did the areas that I airbrushed. For the tiger, I had used masking fluid around his edges, and then I used Frisket over the center area of the tiger to protect him from the overspray of the airbrush. Now, masking fluid is used by a lot of colored pencil artists, whether it's done with the airbrush like I'm using, or if it's just done to keep certain areas of the paper really, really white. Now, I didn't want to cover the whole tiger with masking fluid like I often do, because this is a lighter weight paper than I normally work on, and I do know that that has a tendency to warp the paper, and I didn't want to have to deal with flattening it back out. So I only did the edges. When I removed the masking fluid, it was warped really badly from that, which happens. So I took my spray bottle, misted it all off, and took the hairdryer to pull it back into shape, which all paper I've ever worked on does, except this one. I've never seen paper buckle so badly and be so warped and not want to take its shape. I took an iron to it, I took the hairdryer, nothing was getting it back into shape. Normally I just spray the paper with water, hairdry it, dries totally flat. This stuff wouldn't, and that was really weird. I've used Strathmore's 300 series, the 80-pound medium textured paper that has always dried back into shape. I've used the Strathmore Bristol Vellum, that never warped. This stuff was weird how badly it warped, so that was strike number one for me. Now, not everybody is going to use masking fluid or use an airbrush, so that's not going to be a big deal for everybody, I get that. But I just wanted to let you guys know how it handles those. So once I got started on the tiger, this is where I got really, really frustrated. It doesn't take color well. It doesn't take a lot of layers. The paper is too slick and the pencil is just not sticking to it. When I started on the ear back here, there's a lot of black there. And normally black, it's not hard to get black, really black on. You actually have to be careful with colored pencil because it's so easy to go too dark. But with this, the pencil just wouldn't stick. It wouldn't layer right. I had such a hard time getting the color saturation to where I wanted. Actually, it never got completely where I wanted it. And this was a problem as I worked throughout the tiger. The color just wasn't sticking well to the paper. So where he's okay, his color is a lot more muted than I would have liked. I wanted the bolder oranges and browns. It just wasn't sticking. Another thing is that I found I was getting a very gritty look with this that I don't typically get when I use my Fabriano Artistico paper. This, because the color just, I couldn't do enough layers, I couldn't get rid of a lot of that gritty, grainy look. Some people are gonna like that and be fine with it. So it's very, very much like working on Bristol Vellum. Now, if you like Bristol Vellum and it works great for you, perfect, keep using it. But I would stick to Bristol Vellum. I wouldn't switch to this because the Bristol Vellum doesn't warp. It's thicker paper, it's not gonna tear. This stuff was just, it was not good. So that was strike number two. I could not get the color saturation or the amount of layers, and you guys know how many layers I do. I couldn't get the layers on this paper. Next, for blending, as I moved on, normally when I blend with paint thinner, the paper may warp or stretch out a little bit, but the paint thinner will always help it to dry and pull right back into place. That did not happen with this paper. The only thing I found that would kind of help it pull back into place was taking an embossing gun to it, which is very, very high heat, and it got to where I was borderline burning the paper in order to get it hot enough to pull it back into shape. It was absolutely terrible to work on. Now, not everyone's going to blend with paint thinner, so that may not be an issue for you, but most artists who work in colored pencil burnish. What I mean by burnishing is adding a lot of pressure to the pencil so that you can blend the colors on your paper. That was causing serious warping on this. It was just crazy as I was working. You can see here, as I push on the paper, you can see how stretched out this is. And I several times pulled this paper back together by using the embossing gun. And as soon as I would start to burnish or add any pressure, the paper would flatten out again and just stretch into this horrible shape. It didn't want to hold its shape. I've never seen paper do this before. It was definitely a first for me. And like I said, I've worked on really cheap paper. I've worked on expensive paper. Nothing has warped and not wanted to go back into shape like this paper did. I'm not really sure why Strathmore decided to label this for colored pencil, because so many of the techniques that as colored pencil artists we use, this paper can't handle. It's horrible. The piece overall took me way longer than it should have to finish because I was fighting with trying to get the color saturation and trying to get the paper back into shape. It was a mess. I absolutely do not recommend this paper. Moving on to the demonstration of finishing this tiger in colored pencil over the airbrushed background. For those of you who are supporters over on Patreon, make sure to head over there where I've got the 1-hour version of this complete with an audio tutorial available for you guys now. Now let's move on to the demonstration. Starting off, I have used the masking fluid, as I mentioned earlier. That is the yellow that you're seeing outline the tiger. And then I have a piece of frisket over him to protect him from all the overspray with airbrush. This just lets me be really messy as I'm airbrushing. While the paper did warp a little bit while airbrushing, this wasn't where my main issue was. That dried mostly back into place. It was the tiger. As I worked in colored pencil on the tiger is where I saw the worst of the warping paper. It was at this point when I was doing the black on that ear that I realized that was not taking the colored pencil very well. So that was not happy. I am now going to use my black polychromos colored pencil, and I am going around all of the black stripes. I have them penciled in, but I'm darkening them all up with the colored pencil and getting that definition so that later on when I come through with the lighter colors, I'm not going to lose those stripes or those lines. So it just makes it easier for me. I am using white for parts of the whiskers, and I am darkening some of them up with gray because I don't want them all to be stark white. When I'm putting these black lines in for the stripes, I'm paying close attention to the direction of the fur. You don't want to just put stripes for the sake of stripes. They actually are bits of fur, so make sure that you get that sketchy look and that you're, again, following the direction of the fur. That will give him a lot more depth and make him look more natural. Building up the inside of the ear. This actually, you want to put a lot of work on the inside of animals' ears. Sometimes people will like to skip over that and everything else will look great, and the ears they rush through thinking it's not too important. Every piece of the work that you're working on is going to be just as important as every other area. So do spend extra time making sure that you get all of the detail you need there. I'm blocking in some of my lighter golds and cream colors here on the side of the face where the light is hitting. I want to make sure to keep that pretty light there. And if you guys are interested in drawing this tiger yourself, you can purchase this reference photo from wildlifereferencephotos.com. I've talked about them before. They have such amazing photos. And you can change your background so that yours is completely unique. And then you can make prints or sell the original, anything you want. You'll have complete copyright with using their reference photos. I'm starting to block in where most of my color is going to go. Notice I am starting light and I build up my darker colors into that. It is always going to be easier to start lighter than you think you need to go and then to go back and darken up. If you go too dark too early on, it's really hard to lighten things back up in colored pencil. It can be done to an extent, but it's easier just to go lighter as you work. My initial layers are always done with a fairly light hand, and I build up more and more pressure as I go along, because if you start off with a heavy hand early on, you can flatten out that paper and it will prevent you from putting additional layers. Although with this one it was already pretty slick, and so it didn't want to take layers anyway. For any area of the tiger, a lot of people will think you just need to find the perfect orange or the perfect brown color, and that's really not it at all. I am using 3 or 4 different shades of brown, probably more than that, several shades of gold and orange, reds, creams. There are so many colors that I'm using to get the orange section of the fur. There's just a lot of layering. The important thing that you want to watch for is your contrast and your values. That's really going to be the most important thing in creating depth and making your subject look realistic. In this case, with this paper, I wasn't able to get my color to where I wanted, but it still looks very realistic because my values were correct. That's so important. I would have liked my oranges to be a deeper orange, but with this paper, it was
not working with me. But the point is, again, your values are what's really, really important. As I work, you'll see that I jump around a whole lot. That's just how my mind works, and it's easier for me to see what I'm working on. If I work on the nose, I'll look up and see that now the area on the forehead looks like it could be darker or have more reds or stuff like that. So I jump around a lot as I work. You don't have to. If it's easier for you to work on 1 square inch at a time and colored pencil because you don't have to fight a dry time, you can definitely work that way. I work in large kind of clumps, and then I work my way around and just jump all over the place. Now, anywhere where you're going to want white to stay really white, you need to put that white in first. And I prefer the white luminance pencil, which is a wax-based pencil for this. This will sort of protect the paper from getting too much color saturation. So on those whiskers, I've already filled them in with white, with the white luminance, and then I filled the rest of the color in around them, trying to keep those whiskers as light as possible. While in the finished piece, I don't want the whiskers to be stark white. I still want them to be light. So in order to have more control over how that color comes out, I put white down first, and then work the rest of the colors around it. If I get too dark, I will use an ink eraser. I have one by Faber-Castell that I use all the time. I will pull up any color that gets where it wasn't supposed to, but because the paper, again, it had that wax-based white pencil, it does protect it pretty well. For the areas of the white on the tiger's face, those aren't, for the most part, going to stay very, very white. I lay down white first, and then I go on top with various shades of gray. Their luminance makes a lavender or a violet gray that I love. I forget, it's either violet or lavender gray. Such a great pencil, and it's such a natural gray purple color that is used in so much of my work. But that is what I used for a lot of the areas on the gray areas that are technically the white fur in the shadow. I've got a little bit of blue in there and many, many shades of gray along with that lavender gray. When you're painting or drawing fur, you want to think of it more in terms of clumps than individual hairs. While I do go in through and pull out some individual sections of hair, mostly it's the clumps of fur that you're seeing. If you try to do too many individual strands, it will look really wiry, which doesn't generally give you the look you want. So you can see, especially as I work in on the white, it's really obvious where you can see these clumps of fur. They're usually thicker at the base and thin out towards the end. Achieving this look of fur on the neck there, so important to pay attention to your reference photo, because it's really easy to end up just putting lines all over the place randomly and having a very unnatural look. So I can't stress that enough. Pay very close attention to your reference photo. And having a good quality, high resolution reference photo will make your job much, much easier. And that is it for this demonstration on the new Strathmore Colored Pencil paper. I used polychromos and luminance as usual for my colored pencils, Createx airbrush paint, and Mona Lisa odorless paint thinner for much of the blending.
Thanks for watching, guys. For those of you who are supporters over on Patreon, make sure to head over there where the 1-hour version of this video is available for you guys, complete with an audio tutorial. If you're new to my channel, I have new video critiques every Tuesday where I'm critiquing your original paintings or drawings, my own speed paintings, drawings, and tutorials every Wednesday, social media tips for artists each Thursday, and artist vlogs every weekend. So if you haven't already, I would love for you to subscribe, and you can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Tumblr, Google+, all of those social media sites. Links are below in the video description, where you can keep up with news, my newest work, and see real-time clips of whatever it is I'm currently working on. Don't forget to head back tomorrow where I'm doing a vlog showing you guys exactly how I store my artwork to keep it from getting damaged. I'll see you tomorrow.
Why are you so bendy? You are not supposed to move like this. You're taped down. Stop bending, tiger. Most uncooperative tiger ever. Stupid bendy paper.
Stop.